All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a little recap of our mission partner meeting. Sorry you couldn't make it. I know many of you were bummed either because of sickness or it just didn't work out for your schedule. So I'm shooting this video to hopefully give you a brief overview of what we covered in the mission partner meeting so you can be in the loop about things. We're going to cover just all the things that we touched on. We're going to cover some of our scripture reflections, something called a listening interview that we're inviting people into. We're going to cover the generosity team update. We're going to cover a section I just call Real Talk about where we're at as a church and looking forward. And then we had a little time for prayer at the end, and I'll just mention some ways that you can be praying for us and any other slide that I forgot about that comes up along the way. So let's work through this. Just a reminder of who is who and what the different teams are. So mission partners don't have formal members at North City because we're a church plant, but we, from the beginning, have been congregationalists, which means we discern the biggest things we do together in community. A mission partner at North City is someone who calls North City home, participates in our mission. Some markers of participation are through financial participation, participating on the team, or actively participating in our mission. No one's going to come to all those boxes for you, but generally that's what it looks like to be a partner. People on our leadership team right now are myself as a pastoral representative, Christian Ann, Renee, Andrew, David, Porsche, and I'll add that Dan Burkiel is in the process of considering becoming a leadership member. If you have questions about that, let me know. All right, so we started with scripture, and Andrew Burnt directed us towards this kind of Genesis and Colossians, specifically focused on the image of God. With all of the political violence we've been experiencing recently, it just seemed right to focus as a reminder that our community helps people value the image of God in each other. And so he had this beautiful kind of mashup scriptures and tying Genesis 1 and us being created in the image of God with Colossians 1 and Jesus being the Christ, if you will, or the who created all things and whose image we reflect. So that was really beautiful. We had some great reflections about how we could do this. A couple of thoughts were just like, hey, when we take the time to listen to others around the table, when we do what we're best at and what we're trying to do, it helps people build the capacity to see the image of God in each other as a community and others. And that's just really in short these days. And that comes out in some really ugly ways in our society. And so the work we do really matters. The mission we're on matters a lot. So I'd encourage you to dive into those texts and reflect if you get the chance. All right. Oh, this last line I just want to read you. This is kind of what we do about this. Let your roots grow down deep into Jesus and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth that you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. I think that's a beautiful vision of the kind of community we want to be. So we launched into listening interviews. So this is a practical tool that we're challenging, inviting mission partners to do, and maybe micro churches to talk about doing. The simple task or the simple thing to do is think about a neighbor or leader of a community organization in North Minneapolis or in your spaces of influence or spaces of connection. We as a community generally want to be listening to the people we are trying to love. And so Christian Ann with a formal doesn't sound the right word, but a step-by-step how to communicate with this person and just say, hey, my church is doing these listening interviews, sending them the questions in advance so they don't think it's like a Twitch evangelism situation, and how to conduct those interviews. Then it's recommended that you take notes while you're listening and send those to Alana or myself so we can collect those on behalf of the mission partners. Another way would be to film or do a voice memo and record kind of thoughts, big ideas that came out of that conversation. So here's an example. I would like to try to reach out. I wrote down a list of probably like 5 or 6 different people in our neighborhood who I'd love to do this with. We're just encouraging you to brainstorm 3, pick 1 and go for it. So I'm going to see if I can make a connection with folks at Get Down Coffee my kind of coffee shop and hear what they got going there. I got some connections that I'm going to try to do. That's a listening interview. So that's an invitation to do here between now and our next mission partner meeting, which will probably be towards the end of the year. This year at North City. Here's this that I forgot about. I just wanted to give an overview of everything that's happening at North City rhythm wise in what makes us a church this year, just so everyone's on the same page, and maybe give you the little bit of why behind it, and specifically how we as kind of a growing each centralized nature community are caring for each other in this. So here we go. Here is just an overview of the month. So you're probably aware of this, but if it's a little confusing, like when are we what? Here's a general framework for the school year for us. That, of course, is the first Sunday starting October 5th is microchurch. I'll get to Encounter in a little bit. That's a new thing. And then 3 brunch churches typically. But if we have a 5th Sunday, something we're doing this year is focusing on prayer. We're going to have a brunch church, which I'll talk about in a little bit. On Wednesdays is our other active, consistent night. We'll have this rhythm. Generally, there's a detailed schedule that went along with this that I'll include in a link in the description or something of this video. And as we'll have our classes, which is like the content of discipleship night, and then the men's and women's groups, and those will go every other week. A couple things to stress here. You got 2 options for adult curriculum, if you will, for discipleship, and that is the leadership cohort and the practicing the way scripture practice. So most folks have gravitated towards the scripture practice. I would love for some people to be in the leadership cohort. I think it will add a lot of value to you, particularly if you lead people in your vocation. So the next year, just to let us know if you're going to participate in Wednesday night discipleship and which track you're going to choose. Also wanted to stress that the men's and women's groups are open all the time for you to just drop by. You don't have to sign up for those. You don't have to be a part of the other classes. Those are kind of like support groups to show up to as needed. That'll be at Mill City Church Wednesdays. Check the link wherever you're getting this email for the detailed schedule of Wednesday nights for us, or you can always look on our website. We try to keep that up to date. So let me dive into the components of this a little bit more. So here's the landscape of our microchurches in 2025 here. So I just wanted to let you know the microchurch offerings, if you will, or places of connection. So right now we got 3 primary microchurch. We went down. 1 microchurch concluded its time together towards the end of the summer. So we have 3 right now, 2 of which are in some sort of discernment about multiplication. But as far as it relates to October 5th, our first microchurch Sunday, there will be 3 communities to participate in. So if you're not connected with one, or maybe if you're in between microchurches, here's the lay of the land. We got the Camden Microchurch, for lack of a better name. That is led by the Hinmans, the Wheelers, Kara Doughton, and myself and Christian Ann. That's most often at our house, where I'm at right now, the Larson's house in North Minneapolis. We are studying the book of John together. That's what's happening with us. And we have some other creative connections outside of this just to hang out. The other one is North. Often meets at the Burnts home, but sometimes up at the Hops home. Both of those folks are leaders of that. The 2 microchurches that I mentioned are in some discernment process of multiplication. Then there's the Victory Microchurch that Renee Bubna leads for us. It's most often at her house, but sometimes is hosted at different places. A couple things to note about microchurch. Connect with me if you're in between one and trying to get connected with one, or just want to keep track if there is any multiplication that happens. I'm your point of contact for that. Let's chat. Again, this year, we're going to take turns being at Weber so we can be hospitable to people who are newer to our church that aren't connected with a microchurch yet. So if you don't have one, you can always show up at Weber first Sunday. Through mission partners, just be aware that's a rhythm. And it is a formal process to get connected with a microchurch. You can put a form online, but the informal process happens way more often, and that is you inviting people to your microchurch if you're a part of one. So please do that, or just invite them to check out microchurches by connecting with me. All right, I want to talk about spaces of belonging. So this is a little bit of the why that I mentioned earlier, why we do what we do and what's new this year. So this is from a study/book called Spaces of Belonging that's done that basically says, hey, in order for us to have healthy aspects of belonging in our life, to be people who are with each other in healthy ways, we need these sorts of spaces. So in short, they are space where we can be honest and vulnerable with each other to the level that makes sense. A smaller group of people to a personal space, which is like 10 people or units of people, couples of people that we kind of community with. And then there's social space, which is anywhere from 30 people to 70 people. And that's typically what we would experience at a brunch church gathering, is that number of people. The dynamic's a little bit different. It's kind of public. It's a social gathering. So sometimes micro churches get up to this point and then the dynamic changes, which is why there's some multiplication happening. Okay. We haven't had is the public space, which is the bigger space, which is anywhere from 70 and beyond. And this is kind of event gathering type spaces. It can still have some elements that are personal, that are social, but the way you walk into those, the way you're connected and feel like you belong is different. And that's new for us this year. We are experimenting with this space called Encounter, which is happening every Sunday at 5 p.m. at Mill City, hosted by Mill City for churches, missional leaders in Minneapolis. I'm helping to curate that space. I'm on the leadership team doing that. We are picking first Sundays as a North City Sunday. And what I hope for is not only a personal connection with God during these, an encounter with God during these times that I know you need in your life mission with God, but also I would love for you to come and experience a deeper connection with the broader movement of what God is doing through churches like ours, through the Agile Network and beyond. So this is what we've got, the spaces we're investing in this fall, why we're investing in them. To double click a little bit and talk about, well, how do we care for one another? Because I know we have a unique thing, and the default is like, JD's my pastor, so he'll care for me. Or I have a micro church, they'll care for me. And care is a lot of different dynamics, but we need it. So this is a breakdown of how we care for each other as a community, how we care for our neighbors, even as they become a part of our community. Let me just go through this. So, in the men's and women's group space, that's that can be intimate space where we get real about the struggles of our lives. I'm encouraging you as a participant there to ask the question, how can this group support you when something is shared? And then be proactive in the follow-up of that. So if you ask that question or create a plan for follow-up for those folks who share those things in that group, that's a step of care that we can take for each other. Microchurch is community within community. So if you're looking for that, like who are this church for this season, because we're in that weird bubble space where our church is small. So it feels like you should know everybody, that you should be friends with everybody, but that's just not the case. Your community within the community, microchurches are the space that we've designed for that. And that can be season by season. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your life, but that's a vehicle for caring for each other. And we're assuming a lot of care happens within that. I'm not just assuming, I know a lot of care happens. Like when something goes down in your life, you need something, those are some of the first people you call. And when something has happened in other people's lives in our community, I have seen microchurches step up in amazing, huge ways, which has been fantastic. Brunch Church, as an organization in North City, I'm a pastor who can be here for you in times of need of pastoral care, in times of taking or conflict within or without of our community. I can advise in those situations, as can our leadership team. And then we have structures like to help each other when we just need someone to bring a meal because life is chaotic. So in that, I have kind of this organized nature. And I just wanted to infuse some clarity in our community. Sometimes you'll do it's like an open invite to everybody, like you want to get together for whoever wants to play basketball. Let's do this. That's great. I want you to know that we have tools for you to let everybody know, or let a segment of our community know, like all the moms, all the dudes in the community. So examples like Dave Folk had a pool party and he came to me. He's like, I'm nervous that I'm missing people. So I just advised him, talk to Alana, talk to me, and we will get your message out to all of the people that are in the category that you want to invite. Now, that's not to say that everything you do socially, where it has multiple people, has to be open to everyone. When we have a small community like this, you just have to be discerning and say, whose life do I want to invest in? Who do I want to hang out with? And it is okay to have those dinner parties. It's okay to have those outings. It doesn't necessarily have to be your microchurch all the time. You can just build relationships with people. You have permission to do that. And it might be tough to make the call between one invite or the other. I'm going to this camping trip and it'd be cool for a bunch of people to come. Do I do an open invite for that, or do I just invite people who I want to hang out with? If you're stuck, just talk to me about it. I'll help you discern what to do. So not to belabor that point, but then the care in the public space where we're not known as intimately, but still can be cared for, is focused prayer by people who are living similar lives to you on mission with Jesus, encouragement and a sense of something bigger than even you, your microchurch, North City, just a sense of God's movement in our city is something that's an aspect of care. All right, we went over this already. Here's the discipleship offerings. I'll just pause and say that don't forget we have discipleship for all ages. It's not just childcare. If you meet people at North City who are maybe newer and they're like, is there a youth group here or something? They're like, yeah, group. We share that with Mill City on Wednesday night discipleship. So just for you to be aware of. Encounter, I feel like I talked about this a little bit, but you got questions. This is just super rad. I'm very excited for this. I get to curate the experience on first Sundays, but go check this out. So the communicate here is there on the first Sundays, but you kind of got to opt for it. So like right now you're listening to this and you know that you're going to go to the first Sundays encounters, or you're going to try to text Alana so she can text the team that's providing childcare, because Mill City's paying for these people to care for our kids. And we just need to tell them how many people will be there. It's very generous of them. So we just need to be clear in the communication. And then no childcare for the rest of the Sundays. You can go to all of them. So maybe if you're like, hey, I need it this Sunday, go. Or like if your spouse is like, hey, I just need a worship sesh this week, make it and go. That's what it's designed for. All right, generosity team update. Trudging along here. Thanks for with us. There's some important updates. Want to remind you of our values. Dan Burkill did a great job presenting this for us. Our values are transparency, celebration, and participation. This one's more on the transparency and celebration level and participation level. So here's some goals. This is actually just a holdover from last time. And even though we did check this box, there are some new challenges with the sustainability, I'd say. Humboldt, down. And I think this number is a little bit older. I think it's fluctuated slightly, but not dramatically. Okay, so back time. Remember, we set a huge, audacious goal for both outside giving and inside giving growth this year in generosity for North City. So this was the January update. We were off to a roaring start. We had a strong December, had some new folks participating generosity. Awesome. And we already have some pledged internal giving. So that's this amount here. It's a projection. What we thought. Oh, sorry. This one, 7,200, was a projection of people who are monthly sustainers of our meals who are not a part of our community. Because that, if there's someone who's not a part of our community or is an outside giver, their money directly goes to fund our meals. And some of them give monthly. So these were the projections we had. Here's where we were 7 months in May before summer push. So not a lot of change with the outside giving. And there wasn't much of a change here. But this projection here was going to be nearly 10%. Our goal was increasing it by 16%. So it was very ambitious in both of these parts. And here's where, as in projections, September. So our fiscal year runs from October through September. We start with outside giving. So we did have some summer increase, but only 60% of our goal towards $15,000. So we saw some outside giving in addition to the monthly people who are already giving. We didn't have nearly as many church partners this summer. A lot of our partners last year said, sorry, we can't do that this year, which was disappointing. It was what it was. And some of you reached out to your friends and family and they gave. And so that's why there was an increase, or we are projected to pull in 8,000. I'll talk more of this number, but we had some who left. The trend kind of waned a little bit in increase here. However, I will say that I sent a midsummer update on this with an ask to look at this, and many of you responded. A handful of you guys readjusted giving. And so I just want to point out that a 4% increase given the year we've had is still something to celebrate. We just shot for the moon and we got to the atmosphere so far. But here's an invitation here. If you haven't had the chance to look at your giving practices this year, it's a great time to start. If you're not starting to financially participate, we really value that. It makes us, gives us to do what we do. And if you do this and you discern something different, it was huge for us, even though we didn't make our goal. Everything you give matters and is very helpful. So here are the steps for you. Pray, as I've been saying, like pray personally. There's opportunity. Well, pray for provision for our church to come through in the ways that we imagine and ways we don't imagine. And then discern. Each of us has a part to play as mission partners to think about how we can financially participate because we're all doing this together. There's not one person, fueling this, all doing it together. And then ask. We have a unique opportunity to ask your network to support a really cool thing. And this year, it's really cool because their support not only just buys food at Costco, it directly supports a nonprofit in North, Jailbreakers, that is helping people with job training, which is awesome. So don't shy away from giving people the opportunity to give to what we're doing. That's directly what that money goes for. So that being said, this is where we're at. So these are the meals that we've covered for the last fiscal year. So there's a deficit for this last fiscal year. So if you got people to call, hey, could you support a meal? The amount for a meal is $275. Or, hey, we got this gap for this last year. Anything you can do to help us chip away in the next 2 weeks through the end of September, I'm praying for God to do something cool. Beyond September, it's a great opportunity to let people know to become what you might call a sustaining investor in Jailbreakers in our meal. We have a lot of people who are on a monthly giving plan to North City that don't go there, but they just love what we're doing and their money goes directly to the meals that we serve our community and we eat together. So here's a QR code for that. There's a link on our website. I think it's under summer partnerships right now. If you can't find this, it'll either be below. And if it's not there, text or call me. All right. So let's about where we're at as a community. I want to give you some participation numbers. The best way I just want to let you into these questions. Where are we at? What are we asking God for? And what are we hearing from God? Those are the primary questions. This whole of North City has been an experiment. I don't know anyone doing church like we're doing. I don't know anyone really with the economic model we have. There's people out there, but there's a lot of differences. And so what we're doing is very pioneering. And so that's not wrong or bad. It just comes with a lot of uncertainty. And so we have taken that head on and faithfully embraced the uncertainty that's in front of us. And we've developed quite the aptitude to tackle what other people might consider as obstacles as opportunities to innovate what it means to partner with God in mission. So that as a caveat, here's what's going on with that. And this is just data of participation for you to know about, want to be real with it, so you can enter into the challenge with us, the team, your fellow mission partners. I want to say up front too, I don't think there's anything to do right away. There's not immediate changes to make, but there's just things to pay attention to and maybe some actions to take, some experiments to try, but no fundamental changes that are being proposed. So participation. So this is our general attendance, if you want to call it, our participation in our Sunday experience, whatever then, whether it's brunch church, dinner church, over the years. The big thing to note is that we have bumped into and up against about an average of 62 people, and certainly balloons during the summer and then comes down during the school year. But I'm not drawing conclusions about that. It's just the reality of our participation. So it may raise some questions like, it happened for us to punch through that barrier. Do we need to punch through that barrier? And let's keep going here. Here's serving participation. So this is the current situation of where we're at. So in order for our teams to be operating well on just the 3 Sundays that we do brunch church, we do micro church for the rest of it, we love 15, 16 family life team members, and we would love 15 host team members. Right now we have 10 of each. And I just want to say that you as mission partners all of you are really engaged in this reality, or you have been for a long time. And this is just what is right now. And we're trying to notice and pay attention to what this might mean. The second is participation. So you saw a little bit of these numbers before, but just the nature of where we've been at. So in 2022, we've been actively scaling down scaling our budget so that our costs come down. And we've been trying to scale up our financial participation. So in 2022, 2023 here, we had a large chunk of outside support, a big expense. Our staff was structured differently. We were doing a lot more brunch church and not a microchurch Sunday for that. And a couple of things I want to point out. There has been a steady internal giving increase. So the people who are a part of our church are being more and more generous on the whole. We, however, seen a shrinking outside support giving over the last 3 years. Part of that was the big chunk of this was some COVID government funding money that came through the fact and was just a godsend for us. This was our first big summer push last summer, not this summer. And so a lot of churches were on board, a lot of excitement around that. We raised quite a bit of money for that. We tried to match that this year. And as you saw earlier, haven't quite made it yet. So that's the reality. So ultimately, we'd like to be closing this gap where what we're spending is being brought in by all the sources of income. Part of this has to do with we tried to reduce our budget by 13%. We didn't quite make that number. So we were shooting for more like 1 or something. I'll look back. 113 for a budget. We ended up with around more like 120. And part of that, I can go into more detail if you want, but that's just the reality of what happened this last year. So I just, for perspective, gave this proposition and just named this as the participation. And I just wanted to frame up what it would be like for us to close this gap in terms of mission partner participation. So based on what it means for you and other mission partners like you to participate on average, both with serving, financial participation, and engagement in our mission, we're just 4 to 6 mission partner units, which is individuals, couples, or families, and that 15K goal of outside partnership away from being where we need to be with participation on our teams and financial participation and just general mood in the room. 4 or 5 more couples, individuals, families in the room on Sunday would have the sense of momentum desired for that space, I would say. So I think what this means is I just taught a little bit about adaptive challenges. That's what this is. A challenge. It's not really clear what the solution is. You need to do some more learning and experimenting to understand it more. This has been our process with this. And that is to ask God questions like, God, what are you doing? Let's seek after you for what you might do in the midst of this to shape our action towards this challenge, experiment, and then create spaces of feedback. So this is what this looks like for our church right now in response to this real talk. You ask questions like, God, what does it mean for us to be resourced in what we're doing? What does it look like to be a missionary community? Is the way that we're operating now the right modus operandi for what you're calling our community to be? What does staffing look like in this? Because that's a significant cost for our community and any church. It's around 60% of our cost, which is normal for a church. Experiment, brunch church, encounter, budget reductions, prayer days. This is part of what we're seeking after God for in the midst of our prayer. We're doing all these things to seek after what God might be saying with where we're at. Feedback. This is what I would love your engagement on. How are you experiencing brunch church, microchurch, encounter, these spaces that we're investing in? How are you experiencing them? Specifically, are you inviting folks? Do you have excitement around inviting folks? Why or why not? What's the hesitation there? Or what's the barrier? Not to say you're doing something wrong. I just think that you're not doing something wrong if you aren't inviting. It's just information about these spaces that we're creating. Are they conducive for the people in your life to join us in doing them? For other people who are potential mission partners who are committed to Jesus that you might know or encounter, are they easily becoming a part of our community? why we're not. No judgment there, just feedback. So here's the clear steps. Ask the network for outside support. So that's what I've already mentioned previously in this email. Put the asks out there. If you've got someone who's generous in this situation, be like, hey, our community for the time being is designed on funding these meals through outside support. I'd love to get you connected with supporting Jailbreakers through giving to us and what we do in our meals. Inviting people to experience North City. Just reference who in your life or who you come across would get a lot of value from experiencing what we do, whether that's microchurch, whether that's brunch church, whether that's Wednesday night, whether that's just coming to hang out with some North City friends. Like, who could you invite into the experience of North City? And then pray for vision, direction, and encouragement for what we're doing. So that's the direction of prayer. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to dedicate the 5th Sundays we have together to pray for our community based on what we hear from these listening interviews, based on your real life and what you're hearing from neighbors, and seeking God's face for direction, provision, these sorts of things. I want to say to you as your pastor, like, I'm not afraid. Like, tackling adaptive challenges has been our MO. And I think it's one of the most beautiful parts about our community. And I'm not afraid, one, because this is a learned skill that we've had to tackle these challenges. 2, we're adaptive and flexible. 3, God's showed up for us big before in the past. So I'm excited for what God will do. And I just have faith that God will provide for the things that he asks us to do. If we need to adjust things, if we need to adapt, that's what we've been doing all along, man. So that's no surprise to us. But I am praying for abundance to come. I'm praying for new people to get engaged in our mission and join us in the work that we're doing. I'm praying that because you guys have been at it for a long time, working really hard at this stuff. And I pray that God blesses you and us with mission friends, partners to do this with us so that we can increase our ability to love our neighbors, increase the number of neighbors that we're reaching and loving, increase our capacity to do new and creative things in the neighborhood that are connected and aligned with God's dream for our community. And when I think in that terms, I'm not afraid, super stoked, and I want to hear from you how this maybe encourages you, what questions it raises for you. Thanks for watching this.